The 2023 Sunday Forecaster is actually a pretty decent bike this year. Last year I wasn't a huge fan of it, but they did make some small changes and lower the price to make this bike a better value bike. In this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about the Sunday Forecaster, and at the end of the video, I'm gonna give you the honest truth. Sometimes I get in trouble for doing that, but I'm just gonna tell you guys straight up whether or not I recommend this bike. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the 2023 Sunday Forecaster. Real quick, the Sunday Forecaster and the Sunday Forecaster Park are actually different bikes. They have different geometries, different things about it, okay? Instead of making a whole different Sunday Forecaster Park review, I think I'm just gonna add a section in here. And if I feel like going more in depth, I will go more in depth in a separate video that will be linked in the description or up here on the screen. The Sunday Forecaster is gonna weigh 26.78 pounds. It's a fairly light bike. Everything on the Forecaster is fully customizable and fully upgradable. So you're able to take the bars and replace them with new bars. You're able to change the cranks, the pedals, the stem, whatever you want to change on this bike, you can do that to make it more suitable for you and your ride. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with any pegs, but most of the versions of this bike do come with one hub guard on the drive side. The versions that come with the Clutch V2 Free Coaster have a hub guard on the drive side, but not the cassette version. And so just before you buy it, double check if you are getting that hub guard or not. One hub guard literally doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal, but it's something to point out for sure. This bike does have U-brakes, so if you wanted to stop, you can definitely do so. If you wanted to take the brakes off, everything is removable. Okay, there are lots of options here, so I'm gonna read through the different size and different color options. When you're checking out these bikes, make sure you really look at everything. Sunday is notorious. It's not a bad thing, but they make small differences between different bikes. So for example, the Sunday X last year, one version was a free coaster, one version was a cassette. You really need to check that. The Forecaster, there are versions that are free coasters and there's versions that are cassettes, and it's important for you to understand which version is which so you don't get stuck with a bike that has a cassette when you really wanted a free coaster, or so on and so forth. But I'll mention them later on, which ones have free coaster, which one have cassette, but I just want to give you that heads up. Double check before you buy the bike. Okay, you need to choose between a 20.5 inch Aaron Ross white option, a 20.75 inch matte maroon, a 20.75 Brett Silva Fire Engine red, and a 21 inch Brock Rayford black. The Brock Rayford black comes in a left-hand drive or a right-hand drive option, which is pretty unique. You can't choose between left-hand drive and right-hand drive for any bike under like $1,000. You can choose that with the We the People Envy and the Sunday Soundwave, and I guess a lot of the fly bikes, but that's pretty rare to be able to choose that, and it's cool that you can do that on the Brock Rayford version. So the 20.5 inch Aaron Ross version is best for those riders who are between 5'6" and 5'9". The 20.75 inch option is best for riders between 5'9" and 6 foot. And that 21 inch option is best for riders who are over 6 foot. If you're significantly over 6 foot, like 6'3", 6'4", I'd say stay away from the 21 and get something like a 21.25. So aside from the top tube length, there are other frame geometries that can have an impact on how your bike handles. I think it's important to take a look at these geometries so you know what to expect on the bike that you're buying. On the Forecaster, you're gonna find a 75.5 degree head tube angle, a 9 inch standover height, a 13.2 to 13.5 inch chainstay, and an 11.7 inch bottom bracket height. So what does that mean? Well, the 75.5 degree head tube angle is gonna be a little bit more responsive than the traditional 75 degree head tube angle. This is gonna make nose manuals easier to initiate, and it's also gonna make steering more snappy and more responsive. This geometry tends to feel better inside bowls and where you do a lot of quick cornering or responsive street riding. The 13.2 to 13.5 inch chainstay is pretty long. Depending on where you run your wheel within that chainstay is going to affect how long your chainstay is, but essentially anything over 13 inches is on the longer side. And if you are riding a bike with a longer chainstay, it's going to feel more stable and it's going to feel more controlled. Your chainstay specifically is going to have an impact with how easy it is to pull that back wheel up and how easy it is to loop out. This chainstay length is going to make it harder to pull it back and get into manuals, harder to pull it back and loop out for bunny hops and things like that. Just a heads up, unless you're really really tall, this bike might be a little bit harder to maneuver. But to counteract that, they went ahead and put an 11.7-inch bottom bracket height. This is a more responsive bottom bracket height than we see on the Sunday bikes so far. All of the Sunday bikes cheaper than this came with an 11.5-inch bottom bracket height, and this is going to make it feel a little bit more responsive since your feet are higher up off the ground. The gearing on this bike is 25/9, meaning you've got a 25-tooth sprocket and a 9-tooth driver. Each version of this bike is going to be a right-hand drive bike unless you choose the left-hand drive Brock Rayford version. All the Sunday Forecaster bikes have a free coaster. It's the Odyssey Clutch V2 free coaster unless you choose the Brett Silva version. The Brett Silva version has a cassette. Okay, so the quality of the bike is pretty important. This is going to determine how much abuse the bike can handle, how good of tricks you can do before you break it, and essentially how long it's going to last. The most important part on this bike is the frame, and the frame on the Sunday Forecaster is going to be full chromoly, much better than the one chromoly down tube found on the Sunday Scout. The forks are high tensile steel fork legs with a chromoly steer tube. This means that the fork legs can bend and can break, especially when your nose casing jumps or when you're doing disasters or certain tricks. They're going to stretch your fork legs out. It's a bummer, it's something that happens, but that's what you get with a cheaper bike. The handlebars are high tensile steel. The cranks are 8-spline, 3-piece, full chromoly cranks, and the rims are Odyssey Stage 1 single wall rims. The difference here, they had the cheaper versions just have aluminum single wall rims. The Odyssey Stage 1 rims have an extra thick sidewall, making them a little bit more resistant to dings and to bends, but they're not completely resistant since the rim structure is still weak, but they do have an extra thick sidewall. I like that it has a full chromoly frame, but because of this quality, I still wouldn't recommend this bike for anyone who weighs over 150 pounds. If you weigh over 150 pounds, you're going to put stress on the high tensile steel bars, the high tensile steel fork legs, the single wall rims, and ultimately you're not going to have a good experience riding this bike. If you're under 150 pounds, your lightweight isn't going to have too much of an impact on this bike, and I think it's going to last you quite a bit longer. Okay, before I get into the final thoughts and tell you the honest truth about this bike, let's talk about the Sunday Forecaster Park version. The Sunday Forecaster Park version is going to look a little bit different than the traditional Sunday Forecaster BMX bike, and that's because this bike is, well, it's designed for park riding. This bike is going to be found rocking a gyro brake system instead of a traditional straight cable. It's going to have a much lower standover height and a more responsive frame geometry overall. This is going to give the bike a snappy and responsive feeling so that it can really maneuver skate parks quickly while doing some technical riding. The Forecaster Park is going to cost $579, which is the same amount as the other Forecaster options. Like I said, it does have this gyro brake system, which technically would cost a little bit more for Sunday to produce, so I appreciate the fact that they kept this bike at the same price without it, they didn't increase it because of the gyro. Everything on the bike is fully sealed, fully upgradable, fully customizable, and if for whatever reason, if you did want to take the gyro off, everything on the bike, the hardware, everything's removable, so you can ride this bike with a nice, clean, brakeless look. The front hub has a female axle, which is pretty cool, but the main difference here, pretty much everything's going to be the same as what I explained earlier. The main difference here is going to be the frame geometry. So the head tube angle is 75.5 degrees, which is the same as the other models. The standover height is 7.5 inches, which is why the bike looks so low. This is 1.5 inches shorter than the 9 inches found on the other Sunday Forecasters. So this chainstay length is quite a bit different than the other Forecaster options. If you run this bike completely slammed, your chainstay is going to be about 12.7 inches. If you run it all the way back, it's going to be about 13 inches, which is still shorter than running it slammed on the other bike. What this is going to do is it's going to give you a very responsive feeling bike, like I mentioned earlier. This bike's going to be a dream for tail whips and snappy responsive tricks like 540s, 720s, just a lot of other things are going to be it's going to be quick and snappy in park, and it's going to feel nice for riding transition. Okay, sometimes I do recommend the Sunday Forecaster. Not a lot, but sometimes I do. It trips me out how much this bike is. It's close to $600. It doesn't have chromoly bars, it doesn't have full chromoly forks, it doesn't have double wall rims. The only thing it has going for it is the frame, okay? But with that being said, I do still recommend it to certain riders who are under 150 pounds because this bike is clean. It looks nice, it has a good design, and it has a few solid aftermarket parts. But all in all, if you're a value-minded shopper, if you're only looking to spend, like you don't have a huge budget and you want to make sure you get the most bang for your buck, the Sunday Forecaster isn't going to be it. And this bike is priced at a premium because it's Sunday, okay? It's that simple. I think they just rely on their branding and their marketing, and they sell quite a bit of bikes. But all in all, when you look at the specs, look at the bike, it's overpriced. It's that simple. But it's not as bad as the Sunday Scout. I do still recommend the Forecaster for certain people, unlike the Sunday Scout. But yeah, those are my thoughts, you know. It's a little bit overpriced. And for some people, the Sunday Forecaster is a great bike because they love Sunday, they love how it looks. But for some people, they just can't afford to spend that much money on a bike that doesn't offer the same level of value. For example, if you spend $20 less and get a 2023 Kink Whip, you're getting full chromoly frame, full chromoly forks, full chromoly bars, double wall rims. You're getting a much better base quality. Now, it's not going to look as nice as this bike. It's probably not going to ride as nice. Quality wise though, you're not going to have to worry about things breaking and things bending. For like $60 cheaper, you can get the Fly Proton, which is again full chromoly everything. Okay, so you have a lot of different options if you don't want to spend this much money, but you still want to get a bike that's better quality. And I will find those bikes for you on the free bike recommendation if you request it. If you click the link up here on the screen, I don't know where it is, and request a recommendation, I can look at your information, how tall you are, how much money you got, what type of riding you like to do, and I'm gonna find 3 bikes that are absolutely perfect for you. It's gonna save you a lot of time, and it's gonna help me on my mission to get 1 million people into the sport on the right bike. That's my goal. So anyway, guys, check out these videos that YouTube thinks that you're gonna enjoy, and let me know in the comments which bike I should review next. We'll see you in the next video.